You've mentioned on many occasions that your country's relationship with Western neighbors essentially depends on their willingness to acknowledge and rectify some mistakes. You've gone over some of them in the past 15, 20 minutes. But I want to ask, and we talked about the US administration, how is it like to have Donald Trump on the other side? Is it easier because in the last 48 hours, all of a sudden we're talking about the possible lifting of sanctions against your country's flagship airline, Aeroflot. We had the release of Ksenia Karelina, the ballerina. Is there a potential for more movement?
There is always a potential. And as I said in my opening remarks, nothing wrong if the US and Russia have good relations, if US and China have good relations. And what is going on between us and the Trump administration is really a very banal thing. Countries talk to each other without dictating to each other, without asking for any precondition. They just talk to each other. China and the United States, they have many differences. Russia was doctrinated by Biden administration as the immediate threat, China as the long-term biggest challenge to the American dominance. So competition in the world of economy, you see what kind of forms it acquires. And Taiwan, the situation in the Strait of Taiwan, the situation in South China Sea, who is going to have more influence with countries of East, South Asia, and they exchange statements, China and the United States, which are not very pleasant to each other, including on Taiwan. When the West, headed by the United States and other Western countries, they say we recognize, we follow one China policy, but they immediately add, but don't even think of touching the status quo. And what is status quo? It is not. It is not one China policy. And from time to time, we hear from Washington the threats to Beijing. Don't even think of using force. This would be catastrophic. So they exchange niceties publicly, but they never stopped talking to each other at the level of foreign ministers, ministers of defense, national security advisors, and presidents. And somehow Biden administration decided that with Russia it should be different. Russia must learn a lesson, and this lesson, this punishment, would be in the form of isolation. Stupid, to put it very politely, and not talking to each other. So Trump, what Trump is suggested is come back to normalcy, to stop this idiotic posture, which was, I think, which was a disgrace for the American role in the world affairs. Let me put it this way. And yes, we discuss bilateral relations, starting with the normalization of the work of the conditions in which our embassies work. Obama administration started throwing out diplomats. He stole 5 pieces of diplomatic property which are still under arrest. Just like Biden administration has stolen the Russian assets, and they are now thinking what to do with it so that not to create a precedent. They created precedent already. And if they believe that they should not touch the body of the stolen money, but they can steal the interest and spend it on Ukraine, look, this is disgusting logic, and it shows that neo-colonial thinking never left these people. But the embassy activities, issuing visas in certain time frame, not waiting, so that diplomats don't wait for years to get a visa, to normalize the issuance of the US visas to the Russians who are admitted to the United Nations Secretariat. There were also problems. And yes, we want to see what joint project we can consider and discuss together. This was the proposal from the Americans. We never rejected proposals to cooperate in economy, in conflict resolution, never. And when we met with Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz, together with President's advisor Ushakov in Riyadh, we touched upon some regional issues, Middle East, the situation with the Iranian nuclear program, some other topic, and of course, we discussed Ukraine, and I will repeat again what I said then, and I repeated this publicly also. When we speak about eliminating root causes of any conflict, including Ukrainian conflict, this is the only way to resolve the problem and to establish long-lasting peace. Remove root causes. President Trump was the first and so far, I think, almost the only one among the Western leaders who repeatedly, with conviction, several times stated that it was a huge mistake to pull Ukraine into NATO. And this is one of the root causes which we quoted so many times. They also mention now another thing which related to the root causes, namely territorial issue. Mm-hmm. They publicly, including Steve Witkoff, they recognize that the territorial issues would have to be handled in the context of the long-lasting settlement. And
this is the Americans.
The Americans, yes. And I would like to, by the way, when Ukrainians and the US delegations in Riyadh agreed on some paper in favor of 30-day ceasefire, this was done in the context of the Americans saying NATO and territories inevitable. No NATO and discussion on the status of territories. Ukrainians and the people like Macron, Starmer, and Ursula von der Leyen, now they say Ukraine is in favor and Russia is against the ceasefire. But they lose sight, I think, on purpose, from the nuances, as Putin called them, NATO and territories. Because it is in the context of these aspects that the American proposal was put forward. Immediately after this was mentioned by the Americans, Zelensky administration said, NATO is none of your business. Territories we don't discuss. We need arms, arms, and arms. And then, since it was in time of discussions of this peacekeeping thing, Zelensky said, we don't need peacekeepers, we need fighting units. So the schizophrenia of these mutually exclusive statements is very obvious. But on territories, I want to make a very important point.
Sure.
We are not about territories. We are about people who live on these lands, whose ancestors lived there for centuries, who founded cities like Odessa, Catherine the Great, who built factories, who built roads, ports, and these people, by twist of history during the Soviet days, became not part of Russia, but part of Ukraine, because this was considered a consolidating factor to neutralize the ultra-radicals living in the western part of Ukraine when it joined the Soviet Union after the war. The people who live there, they are being deprived of all human rights. I quoted the UN Charter, which in Article 1 says everybody must respect the rights, human rights of every individual, irrespective of race, gender, language, or religion. Religious and language rights of anybody who is ethnic Russian and lives on the territory which used to be Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, they were deprived of their basic rights. The Russian language has been prohibited at all stages of education, in the areas of culture, media. Russian books have been thrown out of the libraries. The Nazists in Germany were burning them, but Ukrainians are much more smart. They utilize them and get money for this, you know. So, but everybody is happy. And recently, the canonic Ukrainian Orthodox Church was prohibited by law. They literally exterminate anything Russian. When in 2021 in September, long before the operation which we had to launch, Zelensky was asked in an interview what he thought, and at that time the Minsk agreement was still valid, though later Germans, the French and the Ukrainian president before Zelensky admitted that they never intended to implement them. They needed more time to arm Ukraine. Speaking of the ceasefire for 30 days, logic is the same. But in September 21, Zelensky was asked what he thought about the people on the other side of the line of contact in Donbass. And he said, trying to sound clever, you know, there are people and there are species. And my advice to those who live with Ukraine but feel associated with the Russian culture, for the sake of your kids, for the sake of your grandchildren, get out to Russia. And just a couple of weeks ago, in another interview, when he was asked what is driving him, you know, he said, hatred to Russia. The interviewer wanted to clarify to Putin. He said, no, to all Russians. And this is said by the person who, during his artistic days, was defending the right of Ukrainians to speak Russian. And he said, get lost. Don't even think about touching the Russian language. It's our history. So this is where we are. Hatred is not the best guide. Can you imagine? By the way, I want to. Maybe somebody knows. Israel never prohibited Arab language. No, I don't think so. So I think Ukraine is the only country on earth which is multinational and the language of one huge ethnic group is prohibited. So make it, and if you read and listen to what the West is saying, EU, NATO, especially EU, human rights is on top of everything. When they discuss Venezuela, Russia, Serbia, Turkey, human rights, they never forget about human rights. Check what they're saying on the situation in Ukraine. They say Zelensky and his team defend European values. If your value is exterminating the language of those who founded the country, if your value is to glorify Nazists and their collaborators who were convicted by the Nuremberg Tribunal, to whom you put monuments, whose birthdays you celebrate as national holiday, while ruining, toppling the monuments to those who saved Europe from Nazism, toppling the monument in Odessa, which I mentioned already, to Catherine the Great, who founded that city. By the way, soon after this monument to Catherine the Great, the Empress was toppled, UNESCO granted the Odessa central region where the monument was located the status of the World Heritage. It's such a shame to the lady who happens to be French and happens, I think, by default to become Director General of this respected organization.